If you've ever looked at your sales team and thought, we just need better training, you might be trying to solve the wrong problem. Today, we're diving into a smarter, more structured way to think about building a successful sales organization. Our regular guest you're going to meet in a moment breaks it down into what he calls the Navigator's chart, a four-layer framework that starts with your customers and builds all the way up to your sales process. It'll seem like a simple idea, but one that completely changed how you diagnose and fix sales performance. Troy Harrison, a leading sales strategist and trainer, is back with us today. Troy, thank you for joining.
Jeff, it's always a pleasure. I enjoy these videos a lot.
This framework that we're going to talk about is the Navigator's chart. I believe that's something that you've come up with. Why don't you give us an overview of what that is, maybe the different layers of it, and we can get into perhaps the first one in detail.
Jeff, here's a question I ask business owners all the time. How much of your sales organization was actually built and designed with intent, and how much of it just sort of happened and was assembled from the parts that you have? If you're like most business owners, it was assembled, it wasn't built. Here's what I mean by that. I've been doing what I do now for 22 years, and I've been working in and with B2B sales organizations for over 30 years. And in the last few months, really the last year, I've been working on a framework to tie all these things together that I've worked on. And I've come up with a way to do it. It's called the Navigator's Chart. And it's not only my approach to building a business, it's also the title of a book that I have just completed that, well, I'm working on getting published. But the Navigator's Chart is a four-layer approach to building a sales organization. And it looks like this. And the Navigator's Chart is based on the idea that to complete a successful journey on the ocean, you got to have four things. The first thing is you got to have water, right? The water in business is your customer base. How does your customer base buy? How has that changed over the years? And if you're not sailing the right waters, your journey is going to fail. The second level is the vessel. The vessel is the structure in which you're sailing. And for businesses, that is the infrastructure of your sales program. That is your activity metrics, your sales processes, your sales quotas, your comp package, your CRM and your tech tools would also go under the vessel. That is the structure that we are sailing this sales organization with. The third element is the crew. Now, the crew is your people, your sales manager and your salespeople. Are they trait fit for the job? Are they trained correctly for the job? Do they have the right skills? Are they a fit with your customer base, i.e. the water? And then finally is the route. The route is your sales methodology. That's where this training comes in. And it's funny because you opened the question, you opened this video with talking about sales training. And when company owners come to me, a lot of times that's what they want. A lot of these company owners have tried different training mechanisms, different methodologies. None of it fixed the problem. And the reason is that most of the time when a small to medium-sized business isn't achieving what it needs, the problem is in the first three layers. You got to have those layers right before the methodology, the route makes any sense at all, before the sales training makes any sense. So what I want to do and what we're going to do over the next 4 months is we're going to talk about each one of these layers. Today's layer, as we said, is the waters. That's your customer base. And what we see is that the customer base that we are selling into has changed radically over the past 20 years. And really the past 5 years have produced more change in the way that customers do business than in the 100 years previous. The customers that are talking to us now, first of all, obviously they're younger, generational changes, and the generations want different things from salespeople. And I've talked about this before in these videos, but I want to repeat it. Boomers, Gen X, all the generations before us, when you sold to them, you sold to them based on trying to find some sort of a personal connection. You talked football, you talked fishing, you talked about their kids' sports programs, whatever clues you could find as to what their personal interests are. You tried to form that personal one-to-one contact and then leverage that into a business conversation. Well, it's different now. Millennials and Gen X's, I'll be honest with you, they don't have time for that crap and they're kind of suspicious of it. Millennials and Gen X's form relationships completely opposite. They form relationships with salespeople based on you solving their business needs, and they want a business first approach to the sales dialogue. Now, here's the cool thing. If you do become somebody that solves their business needs and if you become somebody of value, then you get the right to start having a beer with them, start having a lunch, start forming those personal relationships. There's still a place for that skill set. It's just secondary rather than primary. So that's probably the biggest seismic change in the waters that the sales profession has ever seen, but it's coupled with something else, and that is these technology. Technology has allowed our buyers to come to us with more information than they've ever had. Past sales methodologies were based on what I like to call information asymmetry, which meant that customers sat down with salespeople and salespeople had knowledge and information that the customers very much wanted. And customers, quite honestly, had to put up with a lot of crap to get that information from the salespeople. Nowadays, the customers come to the salespeople with up to 70, 80% of their buying process already completed, or at least they think so. And they come to the sales conversation possibly more knowledgeable about the salesperson's products and companies than the salespeople are. Well, that requires a very different sales approach. And most of the time, the vessel isn't built for that. The crew isn't built for that. And the route sure as hell isn't built for that. So when we're talking about the waters of sales today, we are talking about a completely different approach, a completely different customer base that requires a completely different approach at all levels than they have before. And if you are not building your sales organization around that, and it's not just building it around today's buyer, it's reevaluating that on almost an annual basis to figure out what changes are needed uh, to continue to be able to sail the waters that you're sailing. One change we're seeing right now is the rise of AI skepticism. I think we've done a video on that as well. But a year ago, AI skepticism really wasn't a thing. Now it's becoming a big thing, which means that our sales conversations can be informed by AI. In some cases, we can even use AI to do customer research and structuring, but the conversation itself has to feel much more authentic and organic and yet still business first to succeed. Man, that's a sales burden that salespeople in 2015 or 1995 or 85 didn't even have to think about dealing with, and sales organizations didn't have to think about. So when we're talking about building a sales organization, the first thing you've got to do is understand your waters, understand who your customer base is, what they want from salespeople, and what they're bringing to the conversation. And then if you do that, you can start structuring and building a sales organization around that. That's how you build a successful sales organization in today's world.
You use that word customer pretty easily there, Troy. So let me ask you this. What is a
Sure.
customer? Is it someone who's actively buying from you, or is it a potential customer?
That's actually an excellent question. And in my book, I go into greater detail. I'm using a little bit of shorthand here, but when I talk about customer in this sense, I'm talking about both buyers and prospects.
Okay.
Because, basically your customer is that person who can greenlight a purchase from you without having to ask anyone else. Could be prospective, could be actual. But yeah,
Makes
great question.
makes sense. Makes sense. So, thinking about how you say everything should be built around customers, what they like to buy, what they need, what they're going to purchase. Maybe you could wrap it up with a thought on what are companies that you coach, what are you seeing out there that they're typically missing that's just like it's obvious, but they're still missing something there. Anything
Well,
come to mind?
the most obvious thing that I see is salespeople who are still going into the sales call, walking into the office, looking around, trying to find a picture or a fish on the wall and hinge a conversation off of that. And I'm actually seeing salespeople getting tossed out of the office after 5 minutes for wasting a customer's time doing that. I am seeing salespeople walking into sales calls not understanding that their customer is probably incredibly knowledgeable about their company, about what they do, about how they do it. I'm seeing salespeople walk in not aware of their own company's Google reviews, but their customers being aware of them.
Mm.
And I would file all that under salespeople just not having their act together in the way that the customers wanted to be. The salespeople are walking in trying to perform theatrics, and the customers they're trying to do business. And that's a huge disconnect. And that's got to get solved. And I'll go on another little tangent here, but it's not a big one. Most of your popular sales methodologies that are in use nowadays were written in a world of information asymmetry. The Sandler selling system was written in 1967. Spin selling was written in 1988. Jeffrey Gitomer's Sales Bible in 1994. Even the Challenger sale was written in 2010, and it was written based on information and research done in the 1990s. Again, all of those are written for worlds where the buyers weren't informed and where the salesperson was considered to be the repository of all knowledge, and we could just parcel it out how we wanted. That's not the way the working environment is nowadays. Our waters are different, and salespeople are walking in completely unprepared for it. And I am seeing customers just cutting them off at the knees right and left because of that.
All makes sense. Get to the point, have focus. You mentioned AI earlier. How
Yeah.
easy is it just to have your AI tool of choice go into a website and find you all the information you need so you're informed when you go into that client meeting?
Literally, and I use Claude. Claude is, I've talked about this before. Claude and Perplexity are my AI's tools of choice. Claude is really good for research down to about 1,000 feet, and Perplexity gets you all the way to ground level and gives you links. But whichever tool I'm using, I don't even say go to their website. I say, here's the person, here's the company. Go out on the web and find what you can find on them. And it'll look at social media, it'll look at LinkedIn, it will look at the website.
Mhm.
Sometimes it'll pull up article mentions and that kind of thing. It'll pull up stuff that you wouldn't have even imagined, and it'll do so in a minute or two. It There are a lot of salespeople out there that still do in-person cold calls. They go and it's called pulling doors. Well, before you pull a door, you need to pull your smartphone, pull up the app, and do that 1 or 2 minute research so you're going in with your act together. Salespeople
Yeah.
don't do that now.